Hello everybody, welcome to Vault Vehicles. This is a review on the Aventon Sinch.2, a step-through foldable electric bike of 500 watts, 14 amp hours at 48 volt battery capacity, $14.99 US currently. It varies a little bit with the special offers that we've got going on the Aventon website. And overall, it's a pretty decent, solid tank of an electric bike. So let's get into the review here. So what do I think about the tires here? The tires are something that I love about the Aventon Sinch.2 here, because it's got the 20-inch fat tires. Now these, they've got like pluses and minuses. The thing that's nice about them is that they're small, so they're pretty compact, but they're also small. It's going to make it so that like this is going to not roll as well as the bigger tires. But I love that they've got the more street-oriented fat tires, because I see so many of these fat tire electric bikes with these knobby fat tires, but this has got the slick ones, the street ones, and I like that. It's really great because many people are not going to be using these fat tire electric bikes, these 20-inch ones on off-road. A lot of these are going to be using it mainly in the city. And in those cases, I really like the slick tread because it's going to have less rolling resistance. There's also going to be very good grip when it comes to the road. So I love that. And it's also going to be feeling really comfortable because of how I thick these tires are. Since these are 20-inch tires, they're going to be more maneuverable than bigger ones. So even though maybe it doesn't have as good top speed, you're going to be pretty maneuverable and also have quite a bit of acceleration here. Like less mass is going to have to be rotated in the wheel to be able to get it rolling. Let's look at the seat here. The seat is something that I'm not particularly fond of on the Aventon Sinch. It is a pretty flat looking seat. It's good for pedaling well, but in terms of comfort, which I know that this kind of electric bike is sort of suited for due to the step-through design, it's not. I think that they could have gone with a better, like a more cushier seat and a suspension seat post. I definitely think they could have done that, but I understand that they have to like save a little bit. You know, they have to save a little bit on the cost here. But if they had to have a bit more cushier seat, if the seat itself had some springs here, you see there's no springs here, but if they had some springs here, some elastomer springs as well, that would be better. So definitely is an upgrade point here. If you get this, probably want to do that, because this is a seat that would be better if you want to like pedal a lot, get some good speed going on. But I don't think a lot of people that are buying this bike are going to be aiming towards pedaling a lot. But maybe you are, and if that case, then this is a good seat here, because it's going to be like pretty maneuverable. You've got a lot of space and less bounce, and enabling you to pedal a bit more efficiently. When it comes to the shock absorbers here, we've got front suspension. It looks like a pretty cheap suspension we've got going on. No like a air fork or anything like that, but I mean, what can you expect at $14.99 for an electric bike? So the suspension fork is something that could be better quality, but I don't think you need the biggest suspension for this type of electric bike. I see this electric bike being more for people who want to be in the city, cruise around, and you're not going to be like super off-roading. So then I don't think you need to have a really beefy air suspension fork, and this has not got so much travel as well. But that doesn't matter. I think this is a good option we've got here, because it keeps the price down, but at the same time it gives some level of comfort. Just to keep in mind that since we have got a suspension fork, it is going to add a bit of weight to the bike, but I don't think that is going to make a massive difference in terms of the performance. I think the benefits of the suspension fork are going to outweigh the downsides of having a solid suspension fork. It's also able to be locked, so that's a great thing. If you for some reason you don't want to have any suspension, you can lock it and be a bit more efficient in both your battery life and also your pedaling efficiency. Or if you want to have a comfier ride, you can go with the suspension and have it activated. We've unfortunately not got any suspension in the rear, and at this price point I think it's good, because I think sometimes like when you've got these cheap e-bikes and they have rear suspension, it has a tendency to be pretty bad quality, and also it tends to just make the overall structure of the bike weaker while providing very little extra suspension support. I do, however, still think that this definitely should be a bike with suspension seat posts. I think it would improve the ride quality a lot. When it comes to the mudguards here, I'm very happy about these. We've got plastic mudguards, and I like actually plastic mudguards over the metal ones, because metal ones are both heavy and they have a tendency to rattle a lot as well. Though they're maybe not as robust as the metal ones, but I really like them that this has got mudguards, because sometimes these bikes, they don't even have mudguards. Now you're going to get mud all over yourself, so it's perfect for someone who wants to go to work and be clean. When it comes to the frame here and the overall build of the bike, it is a pretty heavy bike, like relatively heavy. This bike is 30 kilos, but to be honest, 30 kilos is not too bad. There are more heavier bikes out there, so they're in this form factor, because in general, these folding fat tire electric bikes have a tendency to be really heavy, but 30 kilos I would say is not too bad when you consider that it definitely can be heavier. I know, for example, Engway's Engine Pro, which does, however, have a bigger motor and a bigger battery, but it has rear suspension and is quite a bit heavier than this bike here. So the weight is okay, but it's still heavy. There are lighter e-bikes out there as well, but for what you get, I think that is a good weight. When it comes to the overall bulkiness, I'm actually quite happy about how it is, because sometimes you could see the way the frame is formed with the step-through design. I like this because it makes the frame overall feel less bulky. When I've got the tube over designs, it's going to make the frame and just the overall bike feel like it takes a lot of space. So I like the way that the frame is designed here with the step-through design. I don't think it feels that bulky, but one thing you have to remember is that these fat tire e-bikes, they are bulkier than they look like. They look like a mini bike here, but it is bulkier than it looks like. So it is bulky, but it can be bulkier. What I'm trying to say is I like the form factor here. I think it's pretty decent. When it comes to the cables, really nice. I love that they're internally routed, or at least some of them are internally routed, as you can see here. Some of them are on the outside, but we've at least got some of the cables internally routed, which not all these kind of fat tire electric bikes have, but you can see most of them are actually internally routed, so really clean and like nice that they're out of the way, less risk that you can like trip on them or anything, like get your stuff stuck in them and pulled. The only thing I don't like about, like, just consideration to think about when having internally routed cables is there's going to be a really big hassle if you have to maintain and change anything. Then it's going to be a really big hassle, but I like it. Really clean look overall in this bike. The folding mechanism is all right. I think that this bike may as well not have a folding mechanism, but this has one purpose, I think, in this folding mechanism. In the event you want to take this on a car, I think it's very useful because you can easily fold it up. Otherwise, when it comes to taking the train or just carrying it, I do not think it's that practical. Maybe on the train if you've got designated slots where you can like slide it in between it, but it's going to be still a very heavy bike, very hard to haul it. I think this is most practical, this folding mechanism, when it comes to just in general, like having it in a car, transporting it somewhere. I think it helps a lot compared to a regular bike. It's going to be very hard to move around in a car. So I think it has got some practicality, but not the most practical folding mechanism. So when it comes to lights, we've got a front light and we've got a rear light. It's hard to see, but you've got some rear lights here. You can see here. You see on the frame integrated. So that's pretty cool. I like it how we've got both front and rear lights and all driven by the electric motor. Perfect for someone who wants to commute and never has to think about the battery life on their lights. It's also got a kickstand and a pretty robust one in the back. So I love that we have the one in the back here, because in general, the rear kickstands, as you can see here, I like them because they don't come in the way of the pedals. You can like move them and move the bike with the kickstand down and don't have to worry about the pedals coming in the way. So that's something I really like, and it looks really robust here. It's a nice kickstand. I don't unfortunately have too many colors. I would like to have more colors available with this bike. Black would have been nice, white also, but I like the grey. The grey would be the one I would take if I were to choose. When it comes to the Aventon Sinch.2's handlebar, I like it how it's got a pretty narrow handlebar, because generally speaking, I feel like they're a lot more nimble and like just a lot more compact when they're a little bit more narrow handlebars. The grips on the Aventon Sinch are not that great. You can see that these round ones here, I would have liked to have ergonomic grips. That would have been a lot better. And as you can see here, they're not like clip-on grips with a bolt, so they need to have some type of lubricant like WD-40 to remove. So they're also a little bit difficult to remove. So I'd prefer to have clip-on grips and preferably ergonomic ones. But I mean, the round ones also have their advantages of maybe having a little bit better grip as well at the same time. But I would have liked to have at least clip-on grips with the bolts that bolt the grips fastened to the handlebar. So it's easier to remove, not having to require all this lube and chemicals all the time. When it comes to the stem itself, I like the stem. It's decently sized, it's foldable and able to be foldable. But I prefer if I was able to put it a little bit lower. Like you can see, it can go max to this height here, just near this bolt here. But I would have liked to be able to go lower, because me personally, when I ride, I like to have the handlebar on the similar level as or maybe even lower than the seat height, because I feel like I have a lot more weight on the handlebars, and it gives me a bit more aerodynamic position, but also a bit more control over the bike, because the majority of my weight is on the forward part of the bike. But this is it's at least good that this handlebar is able to be raised quite high, because this enables a very comfortable riding position, and also enables you to have very little weight on your wrists for people who've got sensitive wrists as well. But me personally, I would have liked to be able to lower it. I'm sure you could swap it out. But that's what I would have liked to do. I would have liked to have a little bit lower handlebar, or possibility to put it a little bit lower here at least. Okay, let's go over to the electronics of this electric bike. So the battery then, 14 amp hour, 48 volt. I would have liked it to be a bit bigger. It's an alright size battery. I mean, you're going to get it around to most places. I would have at least liked to have 16 amp hours. I feel like even if you're commuting some decent distances, it's going to be a little bit rough getting around to very far distances with 14 amp hours. But I think for most uses in city, especially the city commuting, it's going to be enough. Because, I mean, the downside of having a really big battery is also that you're going to have a really heavy bike as well. It's a 48 volt battery, so that's good and very compatible with the and broad. And you've got 48 volts to work with, so you can get maybe a bit higher top speed than 36 volt. Not 52 volt, but still 48 volt is like very good standard, I think. Is it removable? Yes, it's removable. You can see here. You can remove the battery, and it's also integrated into the frame, which is very cool. Looks very sleek. Maybe it's going to be a bit hard to get a replacement battery though, so that's just something to keep in mind. The benefits of having the battery integrated into the frame like this is going to be a little bit harder for it to be stolen, and also that if someone does steal it, they're less likely that they're going to be able to find a compatible battery or bike to use it with. So it's got pros and negatives here when it comes to the battery, but I like the way they've made it, the look of it. I would have personally, for my uses, I would have liked to have a little bit bigger battery capacity, but again, we save on the weight by having it a little bit smaller. When it comes to the range on this bike is actually pretty decent. I mean, considering the tires are pretty smooth and the weight is not too heavy, you can get anywhere from like 30 to 50 mile range on it. Like when it comes to real world testing, they advertise 55 miles, but with this battery capacity of 14 amp hours, you're not really, with max assist, you're not going to get more than 30 miles with this. And I'm sure that you can get a lot more, up to 50 with lower levels of assist with this. But you could expect at least 30 miles of range, but possibly more if you use the eco mode effectively. The battery also contains LG cells, which is a decent brand. It's not some random brand that is unknown. It's LG cells, so that's pretty good as well, meaning the reliability of the battery is also going to be all right. It could be a bit better if you would use Samsung cells though. When it comes to the motor, this is like a custom Aventon motor. So it's an Aventon motor, so it should be pretty decent since Aventon is a relatively big brand, so it should be pretty reliable as well. The downside is maybe when you want to get it serviced, then it's not going to be as accessible as say Bafang, that is more like open source, you could say. You're going to be more limited to the Aventon's motors. And the wattage here is 500 watts, and it can peak to 750 watts. I would have liked the bike to be 750 watts by default, because that's more, if you're living in the US, there's more maximizing the legal limits. This is a 500 watt rated motor, so I think that there's more to be had with it when it comes to this electric bike here, when it comes to this power output. Not that I think that you would specifically need in an urban commuting much more than 500 watts. 500 watts I think is going to get you around pretty well. Even 250 watts I think gets you around pretty well. But 750 watts, I would like that, since if you're in the US, you would be able to get the most out of it. But then again, maybe the motor weighs a little bit less because of this 500 watt capacity. So it conforms to US regulations, not to EU though, because it's over 250 watts, which is unfortunate because I would have liked to have this bike actually here in the EU. And it does still peak to 750 watts, so that's decent. You can get some decent peaks of speed, but it's not the rated power output of this motor, so you're not going to have that power output for a long time. It's a hub motor. Hub motors are good for them being independent of the gearing, so you don't have to think too much about gearing. Good for newbies, good for people who don't have too much experience with bikes. But you're not going to have that good initial acceleration that maybe a mid-drive would have if you go into a very low gear. And you're also sort of going to lose out a bit on the top speed if you, a mid-drive is going to be able to utilize the gearing here. But the thing is, you're not anywhere going to go too fast on this electric bike. So I don't think this is made to go like a super racing style bike. So I think the hub motor is still pretty suited. The max speed of this bike is 20 miles an hour. So it's not going to be the most fast. There can be faster electric bikes out there as well, but they're also slow ones. So you're going to get decent speeds on this one. And this is going to have no problems achieve that 20 miles an hour as well. The good thing also is that you don't have to care too much about your drivetrain maintenance the same way you'd have to as a mid-drive as well. When it comes to the sensor, that's a cool thing with this electric bike. It's got torque sensor actually, so you're able to actually use your pedaling capacity a bit more precise. You have a bit more control. You're able to more control how fast you go just by pedaling. It will feel more like a natural bicycle feel. And I find it actually quite uncommon to find torque sensors on hub drives, but it's got a torque sensor, this bike here. That's pretty cool. Some people prefer cadence sensors, some prefer torque sensors. Usually the torque sensors are a bit more expensive. They're more advanced technology, but you've got a torque sensor on this bike, and I think it's pretty cool. I've got nothing against it, but if you want to have a fully moped style, then a cadence sensor would be better. But it's got a throttle as well, this bike, so if you want to don't have to pedal anything, you can just use the throttle as well. When it comes to the brakes of this bike, I would have preferred them to be hydraulic disc brakes. We've only got the mechanical ones, so that's a bit an unfortunate downside. I really think they should have invested in some hydraulic disc brakes. I mean, mechanicals are still going to work, but the actual, like you could say, the stopping power of the hydraulics is going to be quite a bit better. The good thing about these mechanicals is that they are less maintenance or require less gear to maintain them. It's just a cable pulling on the brakes. You don't have to have any fluid or anything like the hydraulic brakes to maintain them. Unfortunately, the Aventon is only available in the US. You can't get it in the EU. And I think it's also because of the legality reasons, but you can't buy in the EU. Otherwise, I would have really want to buy this bike here. So just to keep that in mind. Its market availability is pretty limited. So who is this for? This is a bike that I think is for urban commuters. I think it's a cool little beast that you can go around, cruise around, and be very practical on it. You're going to have pretty nice grip with the slick tires. You can have decent speed with the 500 watt motor. Not as good as a 750 watt motor, which I would have liked to have, but you're going to have decent speed. You're going to be very comfortable with the 4-inch fat tires, and you're going to have a not too heavy bike. There are heavier bikes and there are lighter bikes than this, but you're not going to have a crazily heavy bike. And you can also fold this up, so you can put it in a car, for example, if you're going to go somewhere or move it. It's a lot easier to transport than a regular bike. So I think this is a good all-round bike. Some things that if I think it's worth the price, I think it is worth the price. I would have liked a few things on this bike. I would have liked to have the hydraulic disc brakes. I would have liked to have the 750 watt motor, and I would have preferred to have a slightly bigger battery capacity. But then again, that would come at the downside of making this bike weigh more. So that is a downside as well. I also think that the seat post and the seat could be a little bit more comfortable when it comes to like the use of this bike, the way that this bike is formed to being someone who's opting more for comfort over than pure speed. So I think I would have liked to have a bit more comfortable seat. Should you buy it? I think you should, if you want some cool little machine going around in the city. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. That's my video review on the Aventon Sinch.2. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you learned something new. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I'll catch you guys later.